Business News is next with Tulokwe Okunjabi.
Thanks so very much, Nifemi. Well, the World Bank, in its latest Global Economic Prospects report, says global economic growth is projected to slow to 2.3% in 2025 due to mounting trade tensions and persistent policy uncertainty. The bank, in a statement on its online media briefing center, shows that the new forecast is nearly 0.5 percentage points lower than the rate projected at the beginning of the year. The report indicated that the slowdown would mark the weakest non-recessionary global growth since 2008. According to the report, the turmoil has resulted in growth forecasts being caught in nearly 70% of all economies across all regions and income groups. He said in spite of a gloomy outlook, a global recession is not anticipated. World Bank's Group Chief Economist and Senior Vice President for Development Economics, Indemit Gill, is also warning of deepening stagnation in the developing world. To drive sustainable growth, the report emphasized the need to improve business environments, expand productive employment, and align workforce skills with market demands. Meanwhile, as President Bola Tinubu continues to celebrate his 2 years in office with inauguration of landmark projects across the country, reactions have not stopped trailing his ambitious economic reforms, notably the removal of fuel subsidy and the unification of the Naira, that's exchange rate. A senior economist with STIRS, Dumebi Oluwole, weighed in on the impact of some of these reforms on Nigerians and the entire business environment.
These are policies that we've been expecting over a period of time. We had gotten to the point where, it had to just be done, right? And if you remember from all the manifestos, from all the presidential candidates at the time in 2023, we did see that almost everybody was talking about close to the same set of policies that they were going to make. So they were going to end, the fuel subsidy regime. They were going to, liberalize the foreign exchange markets. We're going to reinstill, investor confidence in Nigeria's economy and, streamline monetary policy so that it's more, effective with in terms of inflation targeting, right? So I'll say that these are things that we did expect to happen. How fast, was what no one could really determine. But seeing the pace at which things have gone, I'd say we've seen green lights from the investor committee. Well, not necessarily committee, investor community. That's what I was trying to say. We've seen green lights from them. And what that just tells us is that the policies that we are making are, making headway.
And Nigerian entrepreneurs, of course, play vital role in the country's economic development, contributing significantly to GDP and job creation, particularly in the informal sector. They are driving innovation and diversification in tech, manufacturing and agriculture. But however, challenges like high interest rates and, of course, financial constraints hinder SMEs' growth. A business enthusiast, Dr. Femi Oladele, who was also my guest earlier today, shares insights on what more can be done to support MSMEs' continued growth in Nigeria.
So I believe that we need larger systems that provide access to MSMEs with respect to the volume. Also, we understand that interest is a big issue. We cannot expect MSMEs. I usually give this analogy that if I take a bank facility or generally a facility at anything above 30%, if it's a 1 million facility, what it means is that I have to turn around that money to at least 2.5 million to be able to pay back my loan and also continue into the future, because there are other costs associated aside the finance cost. And so I don't think that we have done so much. We have many actors, government players, private sector doing lots in that area. But I believe that more still needs to be done, especially with respect to volume and with respect to the interest rates. The rates are too high for sustainability at this point, and we need patience, lots of patient capital in the MSME space if we want to see significant contributions.
Well, the stock market in Nigeria keeps its attraction among investors who are keen on building wealth through companies' equities and government bonds. index of the market closed positively at 0.18%, signaling gains on investments and price improvements. For companies, gainers include Berger Paint, secured 10% gains on deals as investors moved to the stocks. Others were eTransact, Legend Internet, Omatech, and Vitafoam. The losers list includes RT Briscoe, John Holtz, Better Glass, Aradel, and Deep Capital. Well, outside our shores, global stocks rose and the dollar edged higher today as talks between United States and China were set to extend to a second day. With signs that tension could be easing, Euro Stock 50 futures and FTSE futures both edged up roughly 0.1%, while Nasdaq and S&P 500 futures in the United States were also gearing up for a higher open. The stocks advanced in Asia, with MSCI's broadest index of Asian Pacific shares outside of Japan advancing 0.7% to hit their highest since January 2022. In currencies, the dollar attempted to regain footing after falling on Monday. Dollar was up 0.19% against the yuan. The euro fell 0.17% at $1.14. Sterling slipped 0.07% to $1.35. Nepal Central Bank says the country had witnessed a surge in inflows of remittances and foreign exchange reserves between mid-April and mid-May. Currently, remittances into Nepal stands at a record high of $1.2 billion during the period, as against $845.8 million recorded at the same period last year. The Apex Bank noted that during the first 10 months of the current 2024-2025 fiscal year, ending mid-July, Nepal had received remittances worth $9.96 billion, which is a 10.5% higher than what was year on year. Likewise, the forex reserves grew 20.5% to $18.4 billion by mid-May, up from $15.27 billion of last year. Vidya and Howlett Packard Enterprise say they are partnering with Lisbon's that supercomputing center to build a new supercomputer using NVIDIA's next generation chip. The Blue Lion supercomputer, as the project is called, will become available to scientists in early 2027 using NVIDIA's Vera-Rob chip. The announcement made at the supercomputing conference in Hamburg, Germany, follows NVIDIA's revelation that Lawrence Berkeley National Lab in the United States also plans to build a system using the chip. NVIDIA also disclosed that Jupiter, another supercomputer using its chip at German National Research Institute, has become Europe's fastest system. The deal represents European institutions aiming to stay competitive against the US in supercomputers used for scientific researches. Well, crude oil prices climbed higher today as investors awaited the outcome of United States-China talks that could pave way for the easing of trade tensions while improving fuel demand. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude rose to $65.43 with an upward margin of 0.21%. Brent crude futures sells for $67.21 and with an upside of 0.25%. Bonnie Light sells for $78.62 per barrel with a downward review of 2.84%. And for the OPEC basket, dealers offer $65.10 per barrel and the price remains flat.